Young cat got back, did a little bit. Now we hardy, puffy, tough, do-rag and Tim's. Kinda hard to get a job back out on the block. Charge that to the game. Young girl, she grew up in a rush. Had it bad, no doubt. She don't know who to trust. Every man she ever loved only wanna crush. Charge that to the game. But it's all crazy. Hey, baby.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Expose Under the Sun, brought to you by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm Sharon Dumas, and I am your host. And I am very excited today to have my personal chiropractor on to explain what chiropractic care is. Dr. R.J. Gregg, how are you?
Wonderful, Sharon. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're very welcome, and I'm excited to have you here. I had an accident, and I use a walker.
Yes.
And the only thing that has really kept me up is you, the chiropractic care. So can you tell me what is chiropractic care?
Yes, Sharon, chiropractic is an art, a science, and a philosophy, and it's based upon a principle that says very simply, a scientific principle, by the way, that says that the energy impulse from the brain flowing through the spinal cord and out over the nerves results in normal function.
Okay.
If interference occurs to that flow of those impulses from the brain to the body, of course, it results in malfunction, and then in a state of disease, and then finally a state of disease. So what the chiropractor seeks to do, very simply, is find any blockages, which we refer to as subluxations, find any of those that exist in the spine itself, and of course correct them. When you alleviate the pressure on the nerve and the brain now is back in control, the body can heal itself, and in fact the body's the only thing that can heal.
You know, a lot of people are afraid of chiropractic care because of you have to twist and turn, and so I know that that's not what you do when I come. So can you explain why
Sure.
it's important?
Sure. We still practice traditional chiropractic care, which is manual work. And yes, people sometimes are a little afraid of it. In the past, we never had something else that we could go to. Now, because of the wonderful advent of new technologies, if you will, we now have the ability itself to actually correct a blockage, if you will, in the nervous system with a computer. In fact, that's what we do with you.
Right.
In fact, the only thing that the person will feel is just a rapid vibration on their spine. But the wonderful part about it is they see the condition of the spine before we adjust it, and then they can see it after we adjust it. So they can actually see it correct itself. And it's a wonderful, wonderful tool, and that's what really technology has brought to us. It's allowed us to do things we couldn't even do 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. I know that when I come and I get adjusted, what I appreciate the most is the fact that you don't have to wrestle with me anymore. But another thing that I learned is that every part of the body is connected to the spine. Can you
That's correct.
explain that?
Sure. If you went, and I advise people all the time to, check this out for yourself. Look it up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But look up what the nervous system does inside the body. Now, the nervous system is composed primarily of the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. And if you look up what the function of the nervous system is, this is what it'll say to you. It'll say that the nervous system integrates and coordinates all body functions, not some, but every single function of the human body. Now, I like to say it a little differently so it's a little clearer. If I was going to tell somebody what the nervous system did, I would simply say to them that the nervous system allows every single piece and part of the body to work properly. That's what the nervous system does. Now, the nervous system is housed primarily inside of the spine.
Okay.
Now, the chiropractor deals with the spine because it's the easiest place in the body where bones can shift out of position through bumps, bangs, falls, accidents, if you will, and actually block a nerve. So,
Okay.
again, when we find those blockages, the most important thing that we could possibly do is begin the process of correcting them. And then amazing things happen because the body has the capability to heal itself. And that is the only healer. No doctor on the face of the earth, no matter what they are, MD, DO, DC, it doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that can heal is the human body. And healing is the replacement of tissue cells. The body's the only thing that can produce tissue cells.
Now, what about the different surgeries that people are having? I had back surgery, and it didn't help. It didn't help at all. Even though I did get a second opinion, and there was calcium on the spine
Sure.
and all of that. But if you're having that type of pain, what is it? What's causing that kind of pain? Is it the nerve?
Well, there's a couple things. Primarily, it is the nerve, but the nerve can be actually blocked by a disc, it can be blocked by a bone, or it can be blocked by both.
Okay.
And many times we have advanced degeneration in the spine, and I work closely with medical physicians, surgeons, especially neurosurgeons. And the primary thing is today, there is, and they know it as well as I do, that there are far too many surgeries done.
Yes.
Now, the good surgeons, in my mind itself, are those who look for conservative care, to look, is there any options that we can do to prevent this surgery? If we can't, and sometimes it is necessary for the person to have the surgery.
Right.
But they also must realize that when they do have the surgery, it doesn't come without problems. Even the surgeries that are necessary still produce problems because the person will never be normal again.
And that's not what they tell us.
No, and
No.
that's
the
the problem.
surgery is going to correct the problem.
So many times people will come to the office and they've had surgeries like yourself. And basically they have the thought in their mind that they can go back and do everything they did before. Well, they can't. In
Right.
fact, many of the things they did before created the need for the surgery in the first place. So now they have to alter their way of life. And it's not too much alteration, but they have to know, I can't do this, but I can do that. But if somebody doesn't tell them that, and they continue to do it, most people who have spinal surgery somewhere in their life will have another one.
Not me.
No,
Not me. I'm not.
You're right.
Not me. Can you give your contact information so people can give you a call?
Yes, we have actually two offices. At the present time, we have one in Troy, and that's 425-0925, and that's 248, of course. And then we have our main office, which is in Garden City, and that's 734-525-8422.
Now, one thing I didn't understand before I had the back surgery, that everything is connected to the spine.
Yes.
So you could have a problem with your bladder, and then you could go right to the spine and find the connection right there.
Yes,
Can you
you can.
explain that?
Well, as you said it perfectly, there isn't a part of the body that is not directly related to the spine, directly or indirectly. The reason that we go to the spine again is primarily it's probably the place that most blockages occur. And it's because of bumps and bangs and falls and
Right.
crashes. People, we are never taught, including myself before I ever went to school, what things we should do this way or that way. For instance, when you go to a doctor's office, how many times do they talk to you about how you sit, how you stand, how you bend, how you sleep?
Right.
Should you exercise or not exercise?
Right.
So without knowing that, we continue to do certain things that not only makes the problem worse, but sometimes pushes us in the direction of surgery. But with a few changes in a person's life and the removal of that kind of pressure in their nervous system, it is absolutely magnificent what that body can do.
Right, because they talk about surgery all the time. And so if there's something going on with my bladder, you can actually be adjusted. I was just amazed at
That's
how
correct.
you can be adjusted
Yeah.
and you don't have that problem
Yes.
anymore.
Well, let's face it. There isn't an organ in the body that has a brain, but the body only has one brain.
Right.
But the connection between that brain and that part of the body, whether it's the bladder, the spleen, the liver, the gallbladder, doesn't really matter,
Right.
is the nervous system. That's what controls it. That's what makes it work right. I say this to all the time to people. If I could tell you that built inside of your body is a system that's supposed to make the body work properly, and it's not working properly, shouldn't you get that system checked out? But we
Right.
don't.
Right.
Why?
And don't
Because
be afraid.
today, in our world, the media, really and truthfully, is the educator of people. And this is why we see it every single day. You see commercial after commercial after commercial for medications. Now, there's a time and a need for medicine. But I think one of the big culprits today, of course, is the pain medications. And the stronger they get, because the problem is growing. You see, this is the real problem. When you start treating symptoms only, and you don't look at what's causing the symptom,
Right.
well, that cause is developing. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. That's why the pain increases dramatically, and of course our medications increase.
Right.
And as our medications continue to increase, eventually we get to the point where we can't afford them because the insurance companies won't pay for it.
And that's where we are right now. Some of the medication is so expensive.
That's why people turn to
Yeah,
heroin.
so expensive. So if you have a question for Dr. Greg, you can call 313-868-4336 or 868-0351. So let's do our demonstration with the
Okay.
spine here.
All right.
So can you explain some of this?
Sure.
I know for,
If we can hold it up so people can see it,
Okay.
basically the spine, a lot of people call it the backbone, but it's really not one solid bone. It's made up of approximately 24 to 26 small bones. I'll turn it to the front. They're called vertebra. Stacked on top of each other, they form something called the spinal column. Now, if we look at the base things in between the bones, those are the discs that you've heard so much about. The job of that disc is to separate the bones from each other, allow for flexibility, and really to keep it away from the nerve. So when we look at that, we now have a nerve coming out between them. If we go up to the top, sitting up here, of course, is the spinal cord.
Okay.
Now, the spinal cord actually runs all the way through this spine. There's a canal in here, and it runs from the top all the way down to the bottom. And if you turn it around, you can see it coming out the bottom right here. Now, if we take the spinal cord, and we take the nerves, and we take one other component, which is missing here for obvious reasons, and that's the human brain. Those three are connected to each other. When they are connected to each other, they form something called the nervous system. Now, the job of that nervous system, as we talked about earlier, is to make every single piece and part of the body work properly. Now, when we see those bones have the ability to move.
All right.
So a lot of the bumps and bangs and falls that people have, they never think that it's going to create a problem for them. And it may not create a problem initially. And then they
Okay.
do it again, and they do it again, and then do it again as they grow older until eventually that bone moves right up against that nerve. And all of a sudden, what does the body do? It tries to warn us. And how does the body warn us? It produces symptoms like pain.
Real
But the
pain.
problem with us is when we have pain, we go buy something, put it in our mouth so we can't feel the pain. But as I instruct people every week, the pain is not your problem. Yes, I know it hurts, but the pain isn't the problem. It's what's causing the pain is the problem. And if you don't deal with that, I guarantee you, it'll get worse.
Right. We don't want to hear that, but but one of the questions someone had on Facebook Live is, what insurances do you take?
Just about all insurances today pay for chiropractic care in various degrees, and it's only because of the policy. The individual policies itself limit people in certain areas. But almost every insurance pays for chiropractic care.
That's good, because did that just start? I mean, before.
No, actually, it's been around for
around
quite a
for-
long time. The thing that's really, I think, been a major problem lately is that the insurance companies have tacked on such high deductibles and high co-payments. Then you've got people that come in the office that need care very badly. The problem that they have, of course, is they think they have an insurance, but they really don't, because they still have to pay that co-payment. They still have to pay the deductible before the insurance company pays a dime. Well, some of these deductibles are $4,000, $5,000. Last one I think seen was $7,500.
Really?
Now, how is a person going to pay that?
Right.
So what we try to do is we try to work with the individual itself and try to work on a plan that they can truly afford to pay, still receive the care, and not be broke when it's over and done with.
Now, you do something else with the laser. What is that
Yes.
process?
Well, again, this is the wonderful technology that we have. Laser can be used independently for various parts of the spine itself, parts of the nervous system, but we also use it in conjunction with something called spinal decompression, laser-enhanced decompression. Decompression, again, utilizing a computer, it allows us to actually prevent, in many cases, a person from ever having spinal surgery. This, again, is something
Wait, say that one more time.
it prevents people from having spinal surgery.
Okay.
Okay, and what it does very simply is it opens up the disc, allows blood to flow into the disc. The nutrients and the oxygen from the blood is what allows the disc to heal. Now, in some cases, if it's gone too far, we've got to bring in the neurosurgeon or the orthopedic surgeon. In some cases, we do, but in many cases, we don't. We're able to prevent many of those things happening. Again, these are things that have come about as a result of technology.
And what I appreciate about the care that I receive is that I don't really take pain medication.
No,
You know, when I go and I'm adjusted twice a week, I really don't have pain. My pain is now in my legs or my knees,
Yep.
but it's definitely not in my back
That's
anymore.
correct.
And so that's a good thing. We have a caller. Sorry, caller. Go ahead, caller.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I had a question about ergonomics for the doctor. If I think you could address that, please.
Ergonomics.
yes,
Okay.
Yes. Okay. On our job now, we have to carry computers. I'm a home care worker now. We have to carry computers. They give us this briefcase with a shoulder strap, and we're going up and down porches and going up and down stairs. What would you recommend for us to be doing that ergonomically correct, so that we don't have shoulder syndromes and problems with backs and even falls?
Well, thank you for your call, but I will tell you this, it's almost impossible to do it correctly I mean, there are some things that you can do to help yourself, but when you're carrying a heavy load like that up and down the stairs, it is difficult. It's extremely difficult on the individual, especially if they already have a spinal condition. But again, the position of the spine, the way the person lifts, lifting with the legs versus actually pulling with the arms bent over, when those things can be avoided, when a person can do it in an ergonomic position, if you will, it's definitely going to help. But if they're repeating that up and down the stairs and lifting heavy objects like that, it's going to take its toll.
So should she come and get adjusted just to make sure that it doesn't take its toll, you know?
Well, very much so,
Yeah.
because the big thing is if you can't, and you know, some people have work activities that they can't change it.
Right.
And we deal with it all the time. So we try to teach them things that they can do with that work activity that reduces the stress, if you will, on the nervous system and on the spine. And of course, if they have problems itself, we try to address those problems and prevent them from advancing.
Another thing that you do at your office is that you have a meeting with the family once you do the x-rays. Can you explain that process?
Sure.
Where
We have what we call an orientation. We call it a doctor's report. And basically what it is every Wednesday, and you don't have to be a patient, by the way, to attend. And what we actually do is we bring together, if you will, the patient and their family members, whoever they want to bring, and we go through and explain to them what we actually do as a chiropractor, not only what our responsibility is, but what their responsibility is. And it's important for them to know that they do have a responsibility. Because if they go out of that office and they continue to do the things that they shouldn't be doing, they're wasting their time inside the office. Right. Because they're undoing it faster than we can fix it. So in the doctor's report itself, we go through and we explain these things in detail, but we also explain it in a way that people can understand.
Yes.
The big problem that we face today is when people go to a doctor's office in many cases, they don't understand what the doctor's talking about because doctors talk like they're talking to another doctor.
Right.
Well, if the person doesn't understand, I guarantee you they'll continue doing the same thing that brought them to your office. But if you teach them, and just a few little things can make a huge difference as far as their life and health is concerned.
And that's preventive.
Yes,
That's
very
preventive
preventive.
care. Another thing, everyone is looking at their phones.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you told me many times, Sharon, you know, you got to stop looking at your phone like that. What damage are we doing?
Well, I've been talking about this for quite a long time. And just recently, by the way, in fact, I think it was on one of the news stations last week or week before, they have come out actually with a diagnostic, what they call a CPT code, a new diagnostic term, and it's called tech neck. And that's exactly what I've been talking about because, again, you realize that when the head is in a neutral position, sitting over top of our shoulders and our neck, of course, when the head is in a neutral position, it weighs 8 to 12 pounds. But the minute it starts to move away from its support, for every inch it moves away, you can add 10 pounds. At 22 degrees, the head weighs 49 pounds.
Is that right?
Now, you think about that. You think about an object hanging out in mid-space, only being supported by the lower part of the neck. Well, basically, that's what a person does when they're using cell phones, when they're using laptop computers, when they're using a pad. What they do is they look down instead of raising it up.
So we need to be doing this.
Well, the big thing is if you can get your chin, or better yet, underneath the chin, if you can get that to as close to level as you possibly can, you're going to take a lot of stress off and prevent an awful lot of problems.
That's great. So another question.
Sure.
As we age,
Mm-hmm.
we get shorter. Can you explain that process?
Yes. What happens very simply is this. One of the big reasons that people do get shorter is, again, as we talked about the spine, these discs that are in between those bones, of course, when the bone is out of position, that bone is constantly wearing away on that disc. Mm-hmm. Well, that disc is a portion of our height. So what happens very simply, as the disc gets smaller over time, we get shorter.
Right.
And it truly is a fact. We do.
I know. I'm about a half inch shorter now. So yeah, that was the question I wanted to make sure that I asked. But if you have a question, please call 313-868-4336, 868-0351. I can't really see it on Facebook Live, so please call in if you have a question. Also, what about adjusting children?
Well, I think I mentioned it to you earlier. My sons were adjusted when they were 2 to 3 minutes old. So even though I delivered them, the key was this. What could happen in a delivery of a child? Well, first of all, there's powerful uterine muscle contractions. And as the baby moves into the birth canal, those powerful muscle contractions, especially around the neck region, can slightly displace the vertebra. Not even to the point where it blocks a nerve yet, just slightly out of position. But suppose we left it that way. And then we let the baby become a child, and then the child become a young adult. Think about all the things, the bumps, the bangs, the falls, the playing of sports, all of these things that occur until one day they go to do something, and that bone that was out of place when they were an infant shifts. And this time it blocks a nerve. Who would ever think that that began all the way back when they were an infant? Well, that's why we take care of so many children. Because if you can keep them healthy as they grow, it's a heck of a lot better than it is to let them get sick and then try to get them well.
So people who have spinal bifida and the different things that happens at birth, do you think if they were adjusted that would may help?
Well, with the spina bifida situation itself, it's usually a genetic problem.
Okay.
But again, it can result, if you will, in some really, really severe conditions. These are things, even if they're genetic itself, an individual still has to be instructed to some degree on what they can and cannot do, and how to do things differently, perhaps, than other people would do them. Without that instruction itself, sometimes they have it and they don't even know they have it until one day, as I said, they go to do something they've been doing for years. But this time, it lets go.
Absolutely. Another thing is that I've met people at your office who had the blockage put in, so they can't turn their head but so far.
Fusions.
Fusions.
Yes.
Can you talk about fusions? Because a lot of people
Sure.
are getting fusions.
Well, that's the big thing. When I was talking about surgeons, and thank God that we do have wonderful surgeons, but even when it's necessary that they actually fuse a joint, you must realize that the biomechanical strain that's placed on the joints that are supposed to be moving, that are no longer moving because they fuse them, are shifted to the vertebra above. So what happens in a period of time, whatever that time period is, that is usually the vertebra that will give way. That's why many people who have spinal surgery have a second one, because it's called adjacent degenerative breakdown. And what happens is, when that vertebra shifts, that joint begins to wear away, the disc is wearing away. All of a sudden, just like I said, the person goes to do something, and the whole thing lets go. I think one of the biggest things is, and again, I think all the good surgeons actually do it, if they have to do a fusion, they will instruct the individual. You know, you're going to have to be careful with certain things. It's the ones that don't tell them.
Right.
And then they go out and they start doing exactly what created the problem in the first place. And sure enough, they're back on the surgeon's table.
Right. So what advice would you give to people out there that are watching about the posture, having good posture in order to avoid coming to see you?
Well, you can't really avoid it. And the only reason I say that very simply is because we live in a stressful world. You can have very, very good posture, but who would know that, 10 minutes from now, I'm going to trip and fall?
True.
Who would know that somebody's going to run into the back of me?
True.
I mean, we don't know these things. But the stresses and strains, the bumps, the bangs, the falls, and the injuries that are just part of life. And because of that, of course, there will always be a need for chiropractic care. Now, once you teach an individual that prevention is far greater for them than it is to let that problem develop and then try to correct it,
Absolutely.
it's so much better to take care of people along the way, and that's exactly what we do.
Absolutely. Would you give your contact information again? You can
Sure.
look into that camera.
Our Garden City office itself is 734-525-8422. Our Troy office is 248-425-2509.
Thank you very much.
435, I'm sorry.
Repeat it one more time.
435-0925.
Okay, and that's 734.
Yes. No, the Troy office is 248.
Okay. I come to the Garden City office,
Yes.
and I drive
I know you do.
25 miles each way. And people always ask me why. And I just believe that once I find something that works for me, why would I change it? I'm not looking for anything else. I know it's a little much, but I know that when I get there that I'm going to feel better, for one. And I'm not taking the
Yes.
medications. I'm not on opioids. And I have a stack of them at home. I
Yeah.
just don't use them.
Yeah.
Every now and then when it rains maybe or something like
Sure.
that is really when I use them.
Yes.
So, okay, what other advice can you give our people who are out there watching?
Well, the biggest advice, which I've given all my life in service to people, is very simply this. Understand that this body has the capability of healing itself as long as one thing is happening. And that one thing is that you have a nervous system that is working properly. And our stresses in our life are constantly bombarding that nervous system. And if you have somebody that can check that system and then continue to check it periodically, like they practice, by the way, in other countries, preventative is so much better than letting these things happen. Now, if these things do happen, and some of them are going to happen, it's just part of our life, then of course we correct them immediately and then go on with our prevention.
Right. I believe that if I had come to you when I first fell, because I didn't go anywhere, I didn't go to any doctor because I wasn't bleeding.
Right.
So we got to remember that even though we're not bleeding, there still could be damage.
Oh.
I think I would have avoided the surgery. So I just want to say to people out there, if you fall, find Dr. Greg because he's the one that's good. And make sure you go and get adjusted, because sometimes we're afraid of things that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And that's why it was so important for me to bring you on, and so that
Thank you.
we could explain to people we can't be afraid of chiropractic care because it helps.
The people that are afraid, really and truthfully, are people that really don't understand what chiropractic is. They basically have got their opinion from someone else who didn't know what it was.
Right.
So that's why we have that session on a Wednesday evening, Monday evening in Troy, and Wednesday evening in Garden City, where a person can come and just sit and listen. And if it sounds good to you, if it sounds like something
Right.
that's good for you, then fine. If not, that's okay.
Right. It's very educational, too. We have a question. We have a caller. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, I was wondering, can chiropractors adjust for high blood pressure problem?
Well, there's two things with high blood pressure. One of the greatest things that have come along, of course, is the understanding of nutrition. For many, many years itself, nutrition was sort of pushed aside and say, well, all you have to do is eat a balanced meal. Well, our food really does not have in it anymore what we should have in it. Therefore, it's got to be supplemented. And there is a product, there's a few products itself that can help tremendously with blood pressure. Now, the main thing itself is you got to make sure that the nervous system is clear. And when that nervous system is clear and then nutritional products are utilized, many times the person itself can come away with a normal blood pressure.
Great. We have one other quick question.
Please, go ahead.
Go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, exactly. Where is the clinic located and your hours?
Okay, the Garden
you.
City office is in Garden City, of course, and it's on Inkster Road,
The address?
and it's 1647 Inkster, 1647 Inkster. It's about 2 blocks south of Ford Road in Garden City. Now, the Troy office is located on Big Beaver, and it would be approximately a quarter mile east of Livernois, and the address there, again, is East 215 Big Beaver.
All right. Greg's Chiropractor. And thank you, Dr. Greg. Thank you, caller, for
Thank you,
coming on
dear.
the show. I
Thank you,
really
ma'am.
appreciate it. I hope this was educational for our listeners and the people who are watching. You've been watching Expose Under the Sun. I'm Sharon Dumas, and we will see you next week.
Young cat got back, did a little bit. Now we hardy, puffy, tough, do-rag and Tim's. Kinda hard to get a job back out on the block. Charge that to the game. Young girl, she grew up in a rush. Had it bad, no doubt. She don't know who to trust. Every man she ever